Good afternoon. Thank you very much for coming. It's a pleasure to be here at the Fundação Rui Cunha with José Carlos Matias and the panelists. The Chinese-Portuguese Chamber is already incorporated in 1978 in Portugal and is very focused on trying to increase the business between China and the Portuguese and Portugal, and also, of course, the Portuguese-speaking countries, and using Macau as a platform. The Macau delegation was founded in 1992, and what we are doing is trying to develop and to improve the business between these countries. So today is a pleasure to be here because we are going to talk about Hengqin. Hengqin is the name of the game. For sure, Hengqin is going to be bigger than Macau one day. I don't know when, but it's really important that we start talking about it more and more, and going forward with the strategy of the central government and Macau governments in line with the Hengqin as a platform for Macau for the diversification of the economy. And I will not say nothing else because these gentlemen, these ladies, they can say much more than me. José, thank you so much.
Thank you very much, Carlos. Thank you very much for the kind of invitation to the Portugal-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry, to Rui Cunha Foundation. It is my great pleasure to have the honor of chairing this session about something that is truly, truly important and deserves further discussion, enlightenment, and we are holding this as we are celebrating the second anniversary of the master plan and the establishment of the Guangdong-Macau in-depth cooperation zone in Hengqin. Of course, Hengqin has been developing way before 2021. We could see quite well just in front of our eyes, literally at a stone's throw away from the SAR. But since the establishment of the in-depth cooperation zone, we have a new framework which to some extent is also work in progress, but we have witnessed plenty of developments in terms of incentives. Obviously, the pandemic delayed plenty of things, right? Starting by the issue of mobility. However, now with restored mobility, 2023 is already showing yielding some results, and looking further down the road, surely more will come. And over the past few months, we have been coming across a number of measures, incentives, the rule book, very important, on the in-depth cooperation zone, and a number of subsidies, incentives, policies, which of course caught our attention. And for us here in Macau is obviously of paramount importance, but also to our friends around the world, particularly in the Portuguese-speaking countries, as Macau has this function of being a platform for China's relations with the Lusophone world and beyond. So we believe it's important to bring this into the discussion. And also we're talking about the Greater Bay Area. It was in February 2019 that we had the blueprint for the development of GBA, and when Macau's role was singled out as of one center, one platform, and one base. And of course, the platform is for China's relations with the Portuguese-speaking countries. And by the way, throughout that blueprint, we could come across Portuguese-speaking countries' relations a number of times. I lost track. I used to know this by heart, but you can see that. So the framework has been spelled out a number of times now. Moving forward, what are the opportunities? What goes on the ground? And to learn all about all of that, we are fortunate to having here a distinguished panel of experts, of business representatives, people who can tell us first-hand experience and views And I would like to introduce this great panel. We have here on my left Matthew Osolinsky, a Hangshin-based consultant who's been based in Hangshin, by the way, for over 10 years, maybe even more, surely even more. I lost it.
It's either futuristic or just crazy.
Exactly, exactly. He's been actually living in base there. He's the CEO of is the CEO of GW Investment Consulting. And then we have a number of very important, distinguished ladies here joining us, starting by Evelyn Kong. She's manager at Potluck Group. Many of you may be familiar with the key investments of this group in vineyards in Portugal and for establishing a network of wine dealers in mainland China and other businesses. We have here over there Bella Huang from Perfeição. She's event manager at Perfeição. We're also very familiar with business development and carried out by Perfeição, a group providing consulting services to companies regarding business, trade, and investment activities, linking Macau, China, and the Portuguese-speaking countries. And last not the least here, from where we are CNC lawyers and notaries, we are joined by Jessie Lin. She's a consultant and, very important, she's a qualified mainland Chinese lawyer. So we have here, I guess, a very, very comprehensive, pretty much across the board panel to share surely very interesting perspectives, points of view. And I would like to start, without further ado, by asking Matthew Osolinsky. We've talked about this a number of times, and I remember quite well 2 years ago, shortly after the master plan was unveiled and when the in-depth cooperation zone was established, you finally saw something coming into fruition that was and is taking shape as a game changer. Tell us about this whole development seen from Hangshin.
This may take up the entire hour and 15 minutes.
I know, in a nutshell. So
I
I give you, just for the first take, 3 minutes.
I can do it. You know, not only 2 years ago, but I think it was 7 years ago that Zé Carlos was kind enough to interview me on his television program.
TDM talk show. Yes.
TDM talk show. And he kind of was looking at me like, why? Like, why are you there? What are you doing? What's happening over there? Of course, at that time, you would look over from Macau, and there were no big skyscrapers, and it was just holes in the ground. But those of us who were there knew that those holes represented high-speed rail, that represented deep foundations of what were going to be some mega structures. And that infrastructure back then has rolled out so quickly. And I commend Zé Carlos not only for hosting tonight's event, but for continuously covering Hangshin. And I can say having a genuine curiosity about it, servicing his Macau readership now with Macau Business and M&A. By the way, I'd also like to thank Carlos Alvarez for driving this event, as well as Pedro Theotonio for helping to put it all together. It's been a remarkable transformation.
It's Felipe from Rui
And Felipe? Okay, yes. Sorry, I don't know all the politics and the protocol in the room. I'm a simple guy from mainland China. As you can hear from my accent, I'm North American. In fact, I'm from America. And indeed, I have been investing in Macau gaming stocks as my primary role for the last 15 years. And I was over here on an investment mission just over a decade ago. And I became very intrigued by Hangshin, and I looked to do some investment there myself and realized that actually a lot of the hospitality and gaming companies in Macau aren't very aware of what's happening in Hangshin, but it's going to be an expansion area of Macau. Well, back then, and even 2 years ago, we weren't so allowed to say that it's going to be the new Macau in the expansion area. I said it anyway because I'm not government, I'm independent, so I can say what I like. However, now we're hearing it from the actual people in power that this is not only a second Macau, but this is an expansion of Macau. So to simplify it all, it's a very Chinese politically aware or astute way of giving Macau more land to expand, because when China took back Macau from Portugal, it wanted to turn Macau into a world-class gaming and leisure destination. Their term, not my term. To do that, it was quite impossible to build out conventions, family theme parks, more hotel rooms en masse with Macau's small size. And for our international viewers who are watching online, I would just point out that Macau is about half the size of Manhattan Island. So there wasn't enough land. So there was the solution of this previously undeveloped island 180 meters away from Macau. And the solution was to simply, rather than build out a lot of new land for Macau, simply incorporate that into Macau. Because of this quirk of one country, two systems policy, it couldn't be just called Macau and just saying that we're giving you more land, like the new territories were given to Hong Kong in a deal, and it expanded Hong Kong. So it someday will be officially part of Macau, I'm sure, but not in the near term. But it is expanding the Macau market. So it's going to be very beneficial, I think, to everyone from the gaming operators in Macau, to the taxpayers in Macau, to the social welfare recipients in Macau, and all the way down to the SMEs in Macau. So that's, I think, the simplest way of putting it. It's an expansion area of Macau. You can call it all of these fancy things about the pilot zone and the special territory and so forth and so on, but that's effectively what they're doing, and they're rolling it out in a very Chinese way so as to respect the one country, two systems agreement. Thank you.
So we'll try our best to live up to the name of the zone, in-depth cooperation zone, by having an in-depth talk here. We had a great start with Matthew Ossolinsky. Now I'd like to bring into the conversation Evelyn Kong. She's manager of group. Well, we're talking about Hengqin and how the blueprint of 2021 and the establishment of the zone had an impact on your group. You can surely share something with us that is pretty telling about that, right? Thank you.
Thank you so much. First of all, I would like to thank Hui Cunha Foundation and CCILC for the inviting. I feel so honored to be here. In 2021, after the master plan, our company decided to move the headquarters to Hengqin, because the favorable environment and the great opportunity we can see. Here, I would like to share with you guys what's the decision-making process of our company. Because as we see in 2021, Hengqin is still not sufficient
Developed
yes. And why we choose Hengqin?
Yes.
First of all, we know that the policy and measures there is attractive. The qualified company will get a 50% CIT and some purchase fixed asset and intangible asset can be exempt from the income tax, and also some grants will offer to the furnitures and renting. But as you know, the qualified company, they can have this good policy. How can it be qualified? Because our company is a Macau-based company. We have business in Portugal, and also we have business in many regions in China mainland. And we also have some business covering the tourists, the trading, and some we are going to explore some financial part. So when we are thinking about how to move to Hengqin, we consider this like how can the Portuguese products come inside Hengqin? Can the Portuguese products move from Macau to Hengqin freely? And can the products move to the second tier? How to do the tax clearance? And we are excited that we know we heard about that some some materials and components from the other country, like Portuguese-speaking countries, when they come to Hengqin and produce in Hengqin, when they leave Hengqin to China mainland, they can exempt for some tax. So these all are the consideration for our company. Also, because Hengqin has the policies to attract a lot of talented people, so it will be a great chance for us to cooperate with the people from the different regions and different countries that can explore to develop our company to make it better.
Very much. Thank you very much
Sorry,
for sharing.
I'm nervous.
No worries. It's okay. You did great, and it's really, really important, interesting to learn about the rationale behind this move, this big, this investment that your group is making in Hengqin, and what's being actually already developed over there. Thank you very much. And now I'd like to, because Evelyn mentioned the first and second line. This is really important. This is important because it regards the legal framework of the in-depth cooperation zone. Jessilyn, perhaps I'd like to ask you to talk a bit about that. You made addressing the issue of how much of an impact we'll have once we have the second line in place, and what would be the impact of having very soft first line. I think this regards primarily trade, right?
Yes.
Please.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
I would like to thank you, all of you coming here today, and I also would like to thank you, Cui Gunia Foundation, and also the Portugal-China Chamber of the Commercial and Industry Macau. And thanks for your question. I would like to explain a little bit more about the first line and the second line. The first line is the line between Macau and Hengqin, the border right now, the custom. And the second line is, since Hengqin is an island, so they're going to set a second line that between Hengqin and mainland China. So that's have a concept of first line and second line. And the first line, they will have decreased the control. That means that the free trade of product and service can free move between Macau and Hengqin Island. That's the first line. But however, for the people, for the movement of people still under control. So if the product move from Hengqin to from Macau to Hengqin, they will not consider as import. They will consider as a tax-free zone. And from the product from Hengqin, how to get to China and get the tax refund, they have right now they have the policy. It's like if you increase 30% value of the product from the product move from Macau to Hengqin, and while they stay in Hengqin, if you increase 30% of the value and then export to China, mainland China, then they will not consider export. So the tax will be free, like internal movement. So I think that will be very good benefit for the foreign country, especially Portuguese-speaking country, because it's very close connect with Macau and it's very convenient. I think it's really good policy.
Thank you very much, Jessie, for explaining this key thing regarding the first and second line. And Bella Huang, Perfeição, well, your company operates in linking, providing services to businesses across the geographies of Macau, Greater Bay Area, mainland China, of course, Portuguese-speaking countries. I would believe that there's plenty of curiosity in current or prospective clients from Portuguese-speaking countries on how they can benefit from this policy.
Yeah, So good evening. Thanks for the opportunity inviting me to sharing my perspective. Actually, we just have a practical experience last month. We are helping the Macau exhibitions to inviting the Portuguese-speaking countries exhibitor to join in the events. So now, Macau government encourage Macau and Hengqin to have a MICE brand logo called MICE Square. Means that 1 + 1 is that larger than 2. That means that we would like to bring the MICE as the icebreaker for the foreign investor to enter to China, and using Macau as the window and Hengqin as the channel. Like my example is last month when they joining the Macau exhibitions, we also offered a one-day business trip to Hengqin and Greater Bay Area. So during the trip, maybe they just expected just joining the Macau 4 days exhibitions, but this one-day business trip surprised them. Because we are helping them to know the Hengqin government policy, like they could know the trading benefits during this trip. And also, we are helping them to build up the different connections with different industry associations. Like the example is there from Brazilian new energy industry. They are interested to know the development of the Chinese EV industry. So we help them to connect with the associations in Greater Bay Area, and they hosted the forums for the sit-down roundtable discussions to discuss the difference. They are eager to know the Chinese development future. So actually, this is a very good example for them to using MICE to enter the Chinese market, but using Hengqin these channels. Because Hengqin also provide the port visa. The port visa could give them the benefit to enter to Hengqin. Like previously, maybe they need to apply the Chinese visa maybe 3 months ago to prepare the trip to China if they want to join in the Macau event. But now we have the port visa. They could easily apply. They could add more 2 days or 3 days visiting in China. Yeah. And so we thought MICE could create a lot of opportunity for the Portuguese-speaking countries exhibitors. In the MICE event, they are looking and seeking the opportunity to build out the connections with more domestic buyers, and we could help them to using Hengqin, this channel, to connect with each other.
Thank you very much. So you're updating us or sharing with us something on regarding very recent developments that happened just months ago. I mean, just weeks ago. I mean, so you can see compared to the picture earlier this year. Do you see already a change in terms of mobility, visa policy for these business travelers coming from Portuguese-speaking countries?
You mean the updates of policy?
Yeah. You can see already the impact on being easier to bring these people, these visitors from Portuguese-speaking countries to visit Hengqin, right?
I think it's a general policy, visa policy for all of the country will be much more convenient to enter to Hengqin.
Of course.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Bella. Coming back to you, Matthew, we are talking here about the prospect of, in a matter of a few months, once the second line is working in full swing, of having basically a situation of free movement of goods, right, between Macau and Hengqin. Of course, when we're talking about free movement, we have the remaining 3 freedoms of people, services, and capital, right?
And we call it freedoms with Chinese characteristics.
Exactly. So this leads me to the issue, and I mean, more particularly, and I think this is something that you have come across a number of times, which is, on the one hand, mobility of people, and secondly, of capital and the issue of repatriation of profits with regards to foreign investment. When your clients or people that you talk to, and I'm sure this is a main concern, what's the update and what can be expected?
Nothing overnight, and it is currently a major problem. It's a problem that will be solved, and I'm addressing the repatriation of funds right now. So if there's a business that's looking to build out, a Macau-based business that's looking to build out into Hengqin, or even individual investors who are looking to acquire office properties or residential properties in Hengqin as investments, check with your lawyers, check with your bankers, check with people who are actually based on Hengqin to make sure that when you want to liquidate that investment and sell, you can bring the money back, no problem. Currently, there's still issues with that. And I know investors, large and small, that are based in Macau that have trouble when they sell their, when they make profits in their business in Macau, or they sell their property, just getting the money back into Macau. And some of these are quite sophisticated investors, not simple people. Yet it's still difficult. It's not entirely legal, but previously, when the junket sector was more active in Macau, a lot of people would use the junkets to get their money into Macau and not ask questions about how it works. Of course, I could never recommend an activity like that. Now the junket sector has shifted a lot, and that's not a permanent solution anyway. So this is one area. Hengqin's completely new, and it's only been building out for 10 years. So, and it's a trial zone of new policies shared between an SAR, in this case Macau, and mainland China. And that's never been done before. So there's going to be some bumps along the way in its rollout. One of those, in very practical terms, is getting your money back into Macau or Hong Kong or wherever once you exit Hengqin. So this role that the bankers that are crossing the borders, that are bridging this border between Hengqin and Macau, will in the next couple of years be playing a key role in either making this happen or making it more difficult for people. And of course, the legal system will catch up with this as well. And Jesse, you probably know more about this than I do, but I can tell you from on the ground, this is a major concern. I don't think it's a big enough concern to say don't invest in Hengqin. But I'd say just before you inject a lot of money in a project there, make sure you know if you need that money in liquid funds someday, make sure you have a plan in place for how you're going to get it back to Macau. I expect this problem in 12 months, 18 months will be not as much of a problem as it is right now, but it's something to seriously keep an eye on.
Thank you, Matthew. The legal system again, Jesse. I mean, we don't have a crystal ball, but we, based on the rule book, based on the general plan, on the master plan, based on the statements that have been made by officials, what could we expect in this respect regarding the free movement of capital, or at least the repatriation of funds and of profits for foreign investors? And how do you address this? What's the current situation and what could come next?
Okay,
Thank you.
Okay, I would like to say nothing is easy, especially for foreign investor try to get in or get out. Both not easy for the capital investment. And I would say the law, it's like they have a regulation that if you follow steps by step, you can get through it, but it's just not easy. Like for example, every investment, every item, money you come in, you need to have contract. You have proven the money, where you come from, the money, and what are you going, the purpose of the money, what are you going to do with those money. So you need a contract, and they have sometimes they want more proven of your contract, and sometimes they may have some doubt, so you need to prove it. It's not easy, but the regulation, China never say it's impossible to get in or get out. They always say follow the law, you can do it. That's my first comment. And not too long ago, probably 2 weeks ago, the Guangdong Financial Department, together with the Bank of China and the Financial Supervision Department, they just issued some regulation. Before the money from outside to China, you need to deposit in a RMB account, deposit account for capital. And the money in and out there will be under very special regulation. They track every item in and out. So 2 weeks ago, they issued some regulation. They want it for Hengqin only, be easier for the money, the capital in and out, means that once the money inside the capital account, you can use it more freely inside China, and the account set in Hengqin. This policy is only for Hengqin. Another regarding capital in that regulation is that when the money is a foreign currency and received by the RMB account, it can automatically transfer to RMB and save in that deposit account. Before is that when the money comes from other currency, only can stay in other currency. You have to free exchange from other currency to RMB. And right now, it just new. It's only issued 2 weeks ago. But you can see they try to do something and make the capital movement more easier.
Thank you very much. So we are already starting to see steps
Yes.
in that direction, right?
Yes.
So most likely more will come in the coming months, in the coming year, as we'll have next year the 25th anniversary of the SAR. So perhaps more so-called gifts will come, so to say. Evelyn, about all these measures you were talking about as kind of the rationale behind this decision of this investment in Hengqin. Tell us about these measures, the measures that this set of incentives, and how, and also how this can help your business in terms of expansion in the businesses between mainland China and the Portuguese-speaking countries and Macau.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank
you.
you for the question. Because we all know that Hengqin is the expansion of Macau, and it gets more closely to China mainland, and it will serve as a platform as the Portuguese-speaking country through Macau and then Hengqin to China mainland. So we find a lot of opportunities. For example, the tourism, the trading, and some financial part, and some the high-tech technology.
Those industries that are being developed, the so-called 4 industries, right?
Yes, but to be honest, we are still waiting something to happen. We are waiting for more opportunities. Yes.
Thank you very much. And Bella, MICE, talking about the 1+4 and how this is intertwined with the development of Hengqin. MICE, of course, we're talking about MICE is one of the key areas. There's a lot of, tell us about the sort in terms of infrastructure, and how can we have like a situation of a win-win relationship between Macau and Hengqin, and also not so much of a competition, cutthroat competition of zero-sum game.
Yeah. So actually, at the early impression for MICE, MICE may be the service functions for the tourism, attracting more visitor, diversified traveler. But actually, at the same time, Hengqin aims to build up the international tourism island at the beginning, and Macau also want to rely on tourism industry in the beginning. And now we have the 1+4 the strategy. The strategy is not doing the competition for Macau and Hengqin. Actually, they are creating the synergy effect between Macau and Hengqin, because Macau is the best destination for Portuguese-speaking country to enter to Macau, and Hengqin is a great trading platform for Chinese company to build out a connection with Macau. And you know, recently we have TikTok and Chinese famous platform called Xiaohongshu, Red Little Book, that built up the headquarters in Hengqin. We could see these places is helping Macau and helping more domestic investor to build up the connection. So I think Macau could using Hengqin to developing more functionality to support for the 1+4 strategy.
Thank you very much, Bella. And Matthew, in terms of investment, We are over the past few months, we've come across news of big names from mainland China setting their foothold in Hangzhou. And I've come across this idea a number of times already recently that we would need to have like a sound, like a flagship FDI investment of some scale to kind of generate a positive knock-on effect that will then, of course, also attract more and more FDI. How do you see this? And I'm sure you've been talking to people who are interested in carrying out some significant investments.
I hope they're talking to me. That's sort of my little niche on Hangzhou is when there's an international entity, typically a multinational corporation, that I kind of assist them in developing projects or looking into projects on Hangzhou. Yes, we're going to be seeing more development projects from some of the six Macau gaming operators. Half of those are, of course, are linked to U.S.-based companies, and half are based in Macau and Hong Kong. So I think they're going to take the lead. Of course, they also have more incentive than other flagship names in other sectors that to invest in $1 billion project in Hangzhou, for example, because it feeds and services its money-making properties in the Macau casinos, and it pleases the Macau government. So there's very much a political aspect to that. A headliner name outside of the gaming hospitality industry, I do expect we'll see one in the next 2 years announced. We'll see what that is. Keep an eye on medical tourism, and when we hear about TCM, traditional Chinese medicine, and that's quite confusing. Why are they talking about that? And in a Macau context, what are we going to do in Macau? Think of it more as medical tourism. So there have been a few startups in Macau within the casino properties that have tried over the years to get medical tourism going. Hasn't really taken off for several reasons, visas and Macau government red tape, chief among them. But if you cut through that red tape, forget about the visa problems, and you build large resorts on Hangzhou, call it Chinese medicine, and basically it's outpatient services, plastic surgery, liver checkups, things like that, where a little bit of convalescing is required in a 5-star setting. And once the visa policy changes, they'll be able to come back and convalesce also at the baccarat tables in Macau. So the sectors, the sectors of tourism that can develop in Hangzhou to support and expand Macau's gaming sector are medical tourism. So when you hear TCM, that's very politically correct, but think medical tourism because that's what it means to people commercially here in Macau. Think sports tourism, world-class sporting events being with international sponsors being held in Hangzhou. That's already started. And think yachting tourism. They're calling it yachting tourism. I'm going to call it marine tourism. So because the definition of yachts varies widely across cultures. But think of it as a luxury boating experience to a marina in Hangzhou in the future, not currently. And some tie-ups with some casino properties in Macau. And one day somebody can be doing a nice cruise around the islands of the Pearl River Delta on a luxurious vessel. And at night they can be, again, over the baccarat tables and probably spending all night at the baccarat tables and maybe having more luck than they did on the sea.
Well, very interesting. And you were mentioning the islands, and we talked about this a couple of years ago. And now I think some of us can be a bit more familiar with the the outlying islands in the Zhuhai and nearby Zhuhai and Hangzhou.
Yeah.
And that will most likely also be developed. And this, I'd like to hook this up with, of course, what will be a single economic area, Macau Hangzhou, and a single tourism destination area, right?
I try not to if that's for me?
Yeah, that's for you.
I try not to focus too much on policy details because it's very hard to understand the policy and so I try to just talk about what it means. So there's, without getting into the complications of mainland Chinese policy, Hengqin maybe as significantly as the 2021 announcement, which took place 2 years and 1 day ago, of the joint administration and development of Hengqin between Macau and Guangdong province, is Hengqin's relabeling and redesignation as a tourism zone, as a national level tourism zone, which only has that same level of everywhere in China on Hainan Island, which is known as the Hawaii of China. So why is that significant? Because Hengqin will be able to cut through red tape that obstructs other areas of China in developing major tourism projects. Part of that is there's 5 outlying islands of Zhuhai that are now accessible to the public, that are developed accessible to the public by ferry. And there's a lot more islands that are not yet accessible. Those 5 islands, which are tapped for development, as you say, have been moved from under the Zhuhai government to under the Hengqin government, which means it's part of that tourism zone. We might even see bridges from Hengqin out to those islands in the future. So if somebody is coming, this is years down the road, if somebody's coming for a holiday in Chimelong, for example, with the family, and they can go back and forth freely with the new future visa between the Baccarat tables on the Cotai Strip and Chimelong, and maybe on the final day of their visit, they will spend a final day and a night on one of the outlying islands. These islands, by the way, are going to be increasingly accessible for people based in Macau. So even now, I encourage any of you to go out and check out Dongao Island, where there is a 5-star resort up and running already, others that will be developed. So those are small islands. It's fairly limited to how much they can develop them, but you can go out there, have a seafood meal, and have a rural village experience. It would be like going from Central or Disney in Lantau Island in Hong Kong out to Lama Island for a day or Chung Chau for a night and having more of a countryside visit. That's all part of the tourism master plan for Hengqin. We might also there's a new fleet coming in of flying taxis in Hengqin, and we might be seeing those making routes out to those islands as well. More significantly, because even if they fully develop those islands, it's a limited amount of land. More significantly is something that I've been talking about for several years. You and I have talked about it previously, which is man-made islands that are being planned off the southern coast of Hengqin. This would more than double the buildable land in Hengqin Island, and it would allow for a lot more mega resorts. Think of Atlantis in Dubai and Bahamas and things of that scale. Also things that would be spearheaded by the Macau gaming companies, but would not have a gaming component to those properties. So that has been approved, and that would be, if we think of the Dubai model, what was approved to be built off the coast of Hengqin is 3 times the size of the Palm Jumeirah man-made island project in Dubai, which is big for those of you who don't know. Now, there's where we're talking about bumps along the way and how nothing's smooth. Jesse was saying something about it. And there's now those man-made islands are in doubt because China's placed a ban on man-made islands because Hainan and some other places overbuilt and they went crazy with the land sales. So now we're not sure if those islands will exist, and if they don't exist, what the new form will be, because in order to complete the Macau and Hengqin master plan, more land is needed, even with all the land currently on Hengqin. So that's one of these bumps along the way. I'm confident they'll find a solution, because Hengqin-Macau integration is Beijing's baby. It's the central government's project and has been for many years. So they'll find some way to do it, but that's the kind of thing where that build out of tourism projects onto those new islands might be delayed for several years now because of this bureaucratic red tape.
Thank you very much. That's really, really interesting, and I guess some of us were thinking, well, I will no longer need to take a flight to Thailand or elsewhere, and I may have options just next door. Maybe in the next decade, maybe, or starting to take shape by the end of this decade. We'll see how fast it will go, of course.
We'll see.
You'll see.
We'll see. I think key to that will be the visa policy, because right now one can't go back, and a mainland Chinese tourist which is what matters here to all of us in this room and everybody operating properties in Macau, gaming properties. The mainland Chinese tourists, for those who are, and I don't mean to go off on another speech, but this is kind of core to what this means to people in Macau. If a mainland Chinese tourist wants to come and gamble in Macau or do other non-gaming activities in Macau as a visitor, at best, it's a hassle for them to try to get a visa. For those few who can get one, and fewer than 2% of mainland Chinese have ever been to Macau because it's so hard to get one. If you're lucky enough to get one, you can only get one for a single entry in a 3-month period. So Hengqin, the current hotel inventory on Hengqin is not truly servicing Macau's casinos yet. So in the future, and this goes back to the point that I didn't really address that you brought up about the second line. Why the second line is important is not just goods going in from Macau, but because that blocks off from the rest of mainland China, Macau and Hengqin as one tourism zone. And that means that, for example, if somebody's staying at a resort on Hengqin, they can get a special permit, which will be something like a Hengqin-Macau joint tourism permit. And with their verified stay in one of those hotels on Hengqin, they can go back and forth unlimited times between Hengqin and Macau. So this ties into everything else we're talking about, and where those man-made islands aren't really needed now because the hotels on Hengqin are only servicing Chimelong overflow guests. Chimelong is the major theme park company operating already on Hengqin. But once that new visa policy changes, then we're going to see the true integration of Macau and Hengqin as a tourism zone, rather than two separate tourism zones side by side, which we have now. And then we could see, if they can find more land in place of those islands, we could see Macau's hotel room inventory go from around 40,000 rooms to well over 100,000 once we capture the Hengqin expansion. And the same number of gaming tables, more or less, which in terms of supply and demand is actually excellent news for the 6 operators who share a monopoly on mainland Chinese casino gambling.
That's right. Thank you. Thank you very much, Matthew. Evelyn, in terms of, from the perspective of your group, of course, you were building there, but what do you like to see happening next in terms of the incentives, the policies, the conditions? What would be a welcomed move by the authorities to facilitate the business environment there? Would it be like mobility? Would it be like infrastructure? What's needed over there? Now that you've been going there, you're familiar with the overall environment.
Thank you for the question. I might say after listening to Matthew's speech, I get wow. The tourist opportunity is very, very huge. And then what is our best the most considering point, I think, is the opportunity. Yeah, because for example, for the trading park, as we located in Hengqin, how can we make the trading smoothly from Portuguese-speaking country into China mainland? And then which part we can do some process and make the value added, and then how can we be as a bridge to bring more Portuguese products into China mainland? Not only the Portuguese products, but maybe like the products from the European, from the American. Yeah, how can these products enter China mainland through Hengqin smoothly? And as we are a group, we want to see how can we set the headquarters in Hengqin. How can we organize all our parts? For example, in Portugal, in China mainland, in Macau. How can it be well organized to make the profit of the company better? This is
These
our
are
point.
the key questions and the direction that you'd like to see. Very interesting. The issue of market access, I think that is very important. Jesse, now let's talk about Portuguese-speaking countries and those who are following us over here and also online via Facebook, who are certainly curious about is there any kind of a fast track or preferential arrangement for products in Portuguese-speaking countries to reach the mainland Chinese market through Hangshin, considering that, of course, the Hangshin as a market at this stage is still small.
I would like to say the policy is no, it's for all, for Macau and also for foreign country all over, but they focus more on Portuguese-speaking country. And for example, I would say like Evelyn just said, the value add. For example, Portuguese have very famous international, very famous wine, Portuguese wine, and if they import the whole bottle and install it in Hengqin, and if the value can add 30%, then it will not be considered as import and have the wine import tax. That may be some idea I can imagine. And for the for others, I think the for the financial, they have a lot of policy. Right now, just have a framework, big picture that for attract Portuguese-speaking country the capital, and they provide the service for law, for financial, and a lot of language. I mean, a lot of Portuguese in Portuguese. So that's an advantage compared to other countries they don't have in Portuguese. So I think the Hengqin, the cooperation zone, face over the world, but pay more attention to Portuguese-speaking country.
Thank you, Jesse. Bella, about do you see or do you experience or you see in concrete terms any more favorable, or I wouldn't say positive discrimination would be an overstatement here, but a more favorable environment for companies coming from Portuguese-speaking countries? How is that translated? How is that seen?
So actually, maybe we're just talking about the infrastructures and the capital, but actually maybe we just ignore one of the famous Chinese industry is cross-border e-commerce. Actually, this is a very booming, ramping up industry in China, and actually some of the Portuguese-speaking countries eager to enter China wanted through this cross-border e-commerce, and I think Hengqin is a great stage to stimulate this industry to development. In here, we have very establish the e-commerce environment in China, and they could use in China this market, this platform, to selling their products into different city and different countries. So this is also a very good trend for a Portuguese-speaking country to consider using the e-commerce way to build up different connections.
Yes, thank you. And thereby upgrading even the rather global level their approach. Thank you. I will now. I think many of those of you who are joining us have a number of questions that have come across your mind. I'd like to open the floor and ask you to join the conversation via short remarks and, of course, questions to the panel. So, perhaps Carlos Cid Alves, our president of the Portugal-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Carlos, may I say something that we've talked about 1+4, we haven't talked about financial services here yet. I think that will be an issue of great interest for those of us, or us here and those following us in Portugal and in Brazil and in other countries, right?
Thank you, José.
Thank you.
So BNU has already a branch in Hengqin, so we are already working with many customers. Normally, We are working with the Macau people that are investing in Hangshin, and we are following also that issues that you mentioned before. But till now, they are happy with the investments they did, and I suppose that they are not selling the properties they bought, and they are not taking out the money. But I suppose that in the future, that's something that they are going to address. But what I would like to do is to ask for each of one of you. So based on your daily work, what do you suggest me? Imagine that I'm a Portuguese investor and I want to open a branch in Hangshin. What do you suggest me to do things more smoothly, more easy?
Maybe we can. Thank you, Carlos. I think any of you can take this question, or several of you, but those of you who are have some experience or in terms of providing services or your own case, anyone would like to? There are different services. Jesse, maybe is there anything?
Okay. First, I would suggest you need a lawyer.
That would be my guess.
So it's true. It's like for foreigner to invest in Hangshin, first, China the law is very complex. It's like you have law, have regulation, and has explanation from different departments, and those is like soft law. They are not like, you cannot say they are truly binding, but they apply when you use it. So you need someone that professional and understand the culture. So that will be the first point. And the second point is that try to, follow the law. Just I think sometimes there's some easy way, but like for money you get in easy, but then you will get out difficulty. So try to follow the law. And the last, I will say, maybe for the commercial, when you draft the contract and when you feel like that more for Portuguese law or international law or arbitration, you can make it inside the article, be part of it. So when there's dispute happen, you can choose arbitration, or even you choose the court, but you apply Macau law. That's possible if you one of the party is like from Macau or from Hong Kong. You even can apply to Hong Kong law, and they already have some regulation to set up the center to understand the foreign law, so make those policy possible. So, but only for commercial, not for other industry.
Thank you, Jesse. You need a lawyer, you may need a consultant.
You may. What this consultant would advise a Portuguese company that's looking to expand into Hangshin, and not just with a management contract of a hotel, for example, but an actually financially substantial, meaningful investment, I'd say suss out the market. If it's anything related to financial services, research and talk to a lot of people to get the plans about the Macau Stock Exchange. I predict that the Macau Stock Exchange will be located on Hangshin in the financial district of Hangshin. In the history of the world that I'm aware of, there's never been a financial district, a city anywhere where a stock exchange was established, where a financial office area did not build out in a major international way around that stock exchange. Get to know that if you have anything to do with financial services. The other thing I would do is, yes, talk to the lawyer, yes, talk to the bankers. A wonderful advantage of doing that in Hangshin is you have people of your own culture and a comfort level right here in Macau who are servicing companies already in Hangshin. So in terms of comfort level, I'd even put it above Hong Kong, Qianhai, for example. And you can come over and have great Portuguese meals here in Macau when you're checking out the expanding into the market in Hangshin. The other thing I would say is, through those entities, whether it be a law firm or a bank with Portuguese ties, try to meet the most significant potential local partners on Hangshin. These are mostly, sometimes you'll be pushed toward Macau firms owned by Macau citizens, but that's a minority of the major projects and capital investment in Hangshin. I would urge you also to look at and we're talking for multinationals here, look at the mainland Chinese entities, especially the private mainland companies that already have projects underway in Hengqin. Talk to more than one. So if the Hengqin local government or the Macau local government pushes you toward one developer in Hengqin and say, hey, you should talk to these guys. There's some synergy here. You can go invest in the land that they already have the rights to, for example, to build a hotel or build a hospital or build a bank or whatever. Do that, talk to those people, but talk to more. Talk to multiple potential local partners, not only the one that you're pushed to at the beginning. Do your due diligence and feel that, and you'll eventually you'll find a comfort level, or you'll just decide that none of these potential local partners and the perceived uncertainty of the market isn't for us. And then you can decide another place in mainland China, maybe one of the other special zones, or maybe no China at all. Thank you for the question. I have a question in retort. You said earlier that that Hengqin will someday be bigger than Macau in your estimation. Will your bank BNU be larger in Hengqin than it will be in Macau?
For sure.
Again, audio.
No, it's
Yes.
You've been censored.
yeah, it's working. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure. One day is going to be bigger than Macau. I'm not. The only issue for now is that I cannot use the infrastructure that I have in Macau to open more branches in Hengqin. So I have to have a special infrastructure there, as I have already. But of course, it's not so big as what we have in Macau. So we need to fine-tune what we have there if we want to expand. Let's see. But for sure, Hengqin is going to be bigger than Macau in, I don't know, 10 years maybe. Yeah, maybe less. I don't
Well,
know.
you and I will have a dinner in 10 years on Hengqin to celebrate that milestone. But you were the first Macau bank, as I understand, to open a full-fledged branch in Hengqin, Macau Bank in Hengqin. So in some way, and this is not an advertisement for anybody, but in some ways, watching the experience of BNU in Macau, there's some lessons to be learned there in Hengqin, lessons to be learned for other sectors as well. Because you're doing the first in a new policy area where policy doesn't quite exist yet between the banking regulator in Zhuhai and Guangdong and Macau, you sort of, as the first mover, have been sort of having to fight your way to clear the path with the machete through the forest. Hopefully, for banks that follow you, this will make it easier for those that come after. We will see. We'll be watching and learning from the experiences of all the banks and hospitality companies and others that enter Hengqin.
And that dinner, I may join you if you don't mind. In 10 years' time, thank you. It's going to be in one of the many prime Portuguese food, Brazilian food, or other Portuguese-speaking countries' food from Africa restaurants that we'll have in Hengqin, perhaps, right?
Is that to say you really think there's going to be print media in 10 years?
I do think there will.
If not, you'll still be very strong online, as you are now.
Thank you. Regarding talking about advice and that prospective investor may also resort to some services regarding business development. And Bella, based on what you have witnessed, what piece of advice would you have following up on Carlos' question?
I think if for Portuguese-speaking country investor want to set up their branch in China, maybe we are competing with Beijing, Shanghai, and Shenzhen. Yes, because they will have different resources. Could we provide something extra different to separate with them? Like I'm not sure. Maybe Beijing with a great political resources, Shanghai with great financial resources representing China. So anything better resources that representing Hengqin could provide for these Portuguese-speaking countries investor if they set in the branch.
Thank you. And now you touched upon something that has got to do with competition from, and actually Matthew was also mentioning other zones that you have in the Greater Bay Area. Let's say Shanghai in Shenzhen, which are more developed in many ways, of course, because let's say, for instance, Nansha, the Nansha district in Guangzhou. Evelyn, So in your company, it made more sense to do this investment in Hangzhou than in these other places. But there are other, not let alone the more highly advanced GBA cities. There are these new zones that are also have also got some potential, right? And maybe a bit of competition. No?
Yes, I truly agree with what they said, the competition. So before you decided to invest, I suggest you think about what kind of business you want to do, because as we know, Hengqin has some preference policies for some kinds of companies, like tourism, technology, and others. And other cooperation zones, maybe in Guangzhou, Nansha, and Qianhai, they have different attractive parts. So you need to know what kinds of business you want to do, not just follow the people to go there. You need to have your route first. And if the company you are going to do is attracted by Hengqin, any opportunity or resources you will get from there, I think is the most important part. Yes.
So have an understanding of the so-called division of labor, if we may say, in the Greater Bay Area, and where, we benefit. Because we're not talking here, of course, we are centering our conversation around Hangzhou for understandable reasons, but we also want to bring the GBA into the conversation. And now, reopen the floor. Would like to, Suzanne? Please.
Suzanne, Ambient Properties. I'm interested to know how the education bodies have taken off in Hangzhou. I think there are 2 international schools, and I wonder how they're doing.
Thank you very much, Suzanne. Should I bring Val into the conversation? Because until recently, you were deeply involved in one of these projects, right? Thank you.
Yes, a little bit of information about me. Actually, I involved in the HARO project before. Yes, so I know the international education situations in Hengqin. So actually, Hengqin HARO, should I point out the name? The international resources in Hengqin a little bit different. It provides the bilingual educations for the children. So it's not just purely British educations. It provides a way that combining the East and West, also they will provide the Chinese education for the children, but also they will not adapt the British way, like the foreign way. It depends on different schools, curriculum in which way. Different school will direct you in different trends. Yeah.
Are they popular? I mean, are they full?
So far, in my memory, last year's around 140 Macau students study in Hengqin. Yeah, so they choose Hengqin as their school place. So I think this year will be booming after the pandemic. Maybe this number is increasing, and we can see Hengqin have more public school welcoming Macau students, and the Hengqin Corporation Zoom government also doing a lot of effort to attracting Macau people to stay there, and also send their children to learn the Chinese culture.
Bella, can you clarify the licensing of HARO? Is it an international school or is it a bilingual school?
It's the bilingual school because we need to follow the laws.
Ours through Val from
I think
Canadian
it's
Chamber of Commerce
very
and
important.
TIS.
Very important. Licensing of schools in Macau and licensing of schools in China, significantly different and must be very carefully adhered to. So I believe even calling HARO an international school contravenes the Chinese mainland licensing for international schools, because HARO is not an international school by license.
Yeah, in terms of the image, yeah.
The fees are highly international. So the other non-Chinese named school in Hengqin is Dulwich, also a UK-based name. The structure, how they structured the entity locally, I don't know. I haven't been involved with that. But the idea behind Harrow, in any case, as I understand it, was to, which is why I think it's still too soon to say, Suzanne, to your question, was to have a maybe not quite an equal mix, but a substantial mix of three constituents. One is local students who are day students from mainland China, and then a substantial portion of commuting students from Macau, and then boarding students from Hong Kong because of Hong Kong's shortage of what is called in Hong Kong international schools, I believe. So, and the idea behind the Hong Kong students would be they're boarding during the week, they're going back on the weekends over the bridge to be with their families in Hong Kong. That was part of the idea behind it, and Harrow partnered with a Hong Kong developer called Lai Sun Group in the Novotown project in Hengqin to do that. We're simply too soon out of COVID, in my opinion, as a consultant who has nothing to do with education, but we're too soon out of COVID restrictions to know if that's going to happen or not. But that was their initial intent.
Yeah, I don't think it has anything to do with COVID whatsoever. It has to do with government compliance. And so this is a good example of what happens in Macau and what happens in mainland China are two very different things. So when we start to look at the market of this overlap between Hengqin and Macau, we have to make sure that the entities are in compliance with both, or the authorities clarify which one is going to take precedence over the other. So for example, in education, which I know a wee little bit about, they're not international schools. They're not even legally allowed to call themselves international schools. We can look at other Harrow projects that have been shut down because they went in the wrong direction. As a bilingual school, they must run the Chinese national curriculum, 100%. They can add extra on top of that, but it's Chinese national curriculum. So now this is just one aspect with one industry. What's that going to look like at hospitality or MICE or consulting or whatever that is? I think we have to look to the authorities to really bring some clarity as to what's the rule set that we're going to be playing for. Obviously, we're all very excited about the market potentiality that's there, whether it's Macau companies being able to go into Hengqin or foreign countries coming into Macau and then using the platform in Hengqin. But yeah, I think as you said, the next 5 to 10 years is going to be a lot of clarifying and re-clarifying over and over. And hopefully some of our friends who've gone before us will help lead the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Howard. Anyone else would like to? We still have. We can accommodate a couple of more questions before our conclusion. So perhaps we can have like a round of 3 questions, 2 to 3 questions, and then we can answer. Please. I cannot see you. Oh yeah,
Good
there you are.
evening. I have a question for the Mr. Matteo. The topic is for the Portuguese-speaking country opportunity in Hengqin. How about the companies in Hengqin to go to Portuguese-speaking country?
Thank you. Good.
And
Yes,
the second question is for the Miss Yoon. Miss Yoon.
Miss Lin. Yes.
Miss Yoon.
Okay.
Yes. Please go ahead.
Okay.
My question is for younger people from Portuguese-speaking country or for Macau people, and then making some and joint stock company in Hengqin. In case this company go to insolvency, who need to give the money back to Bank of China or for BNU or for Macau government?
Thank you very much. I guess that one will be for, yes, exactly, for Jesse.
Who goes first?
Okay, yeah, you may go first, and yeah.
To your question, I'm sorry I don't know your name, but to your question
Oh yeah,
about
surname I forgot to ask. Gracinda, thank you very much, Gracinda.
to your question about investment going the other way out of Hengqin entities and into Lusophone countries. I haven't heard much about that. I haven't heard much encouragement about that. It just would seem unlikely to me. Why? Because Hengqin is relatively small compared to metropolitan centers of China. there aren't a lot of companies that are Hengqin-based companies. Most of the big projects you can see when you look over at Hengqin and the infrastructure were built out by large state-owned companies that are based in Beijing and Shanghai, a few in Guangzhou. So if they expanded into Brazil for an infrastructure project, for example, or wherever, that would be driven by their headquarters, nothing to do with, in Beijing, nothing to do with Hengqin. The Chinese private sector companies that are developing projects in Hengqin are not really large or international enough to make a faraway country in the Lusophone world their next port of call, unless they're already a multinational. But most are not at that level. If it is at that level, the company again is not being run out of Hengqin. So I don't see a lot of migration of funds going the other way. And I will just address one thing which ties into this whole thing of why would companies from Portuguese-speaking countries invest in Hengqin, and why not a Qianhai or whatever? What's something to look at before you do? Tax rate, taxes. So 15% is a better tax rate than 25%. All the other incentives that you hear about and the subsidies that are very tempting right now to get people to Hengqin, the one thing that matters is to make sure that your company qualifies for the 15% tax rate versus the 25% corporate tax rate that you'd be paying other places in mainland China. And that ultimately is either the determining factor or should be requirement number one before looking any further at an investment in Hengqin. If you can't get the 15, there's no reason you should really be in Hengqin except for those great Portuguese meals over in Macau.
Thank you. Jesse, this question of Lucinda asked is of course also related to the legal framework and the commercial law in place in the zone. Yeah, please go ahead.
May I confirm your question is that the...
My question is, for example, younger people from Portuguese-speaking countries go to Hengqin to open some company.
Okay,
And then the Bank of China gives money to them.
okay.
In case this company go to insolvency, who need to give the money back to Bank of China?
Okay.
You know what I mean?
May I ask why the Bank of China would like to give them money?
Because for enjoying the open the company in Hengqin, the capital is from Bank of China.
Okay.
You you understand now?
Yeah, okay. Okay, so is that the money you go investment? The investment move from outside, you actually is that you transfer from overseas bank to a bank. You can choose anyone, open the bank account. Once you have the company, then you must have, according to the policy right now, you must have the physical place. You have a rental contract, you have a physical place, and then the bank will allow you to open a bank account, any of private bank. And the capital where you will do the process through the bank. You will follow the regulation according to the bank, provide the document as required by the bank, and the money can move from overseas to the bank account of that company. Okay, first. And then later when you want to leave, take the money out of the country, you just follow. If they may require you to provide document. Actually, every money in and out, you have the accounting book, you have the record of everything. So you need to prove that all the money, the profit you make here, you were going to take out, and you need to pay the tax. A tax clean, then you can. So basically, I don't think there will be a problem. It's just like a little bit trouble. You need to prove the income.
Thank you. And if I may have a question which is related to the legal system and the issue of settlement of disputes and which law would govern that. That is an issue that has been discussed. What's the current situation?
Okay, right now it's like they be more open to commercial, but for like criminal, or for like labor law, you need to follow the mainland Chinese law. And for commercial, the Supreme Court already say allow the people, either one party from Hong Kong, Macau, or international, they can choose in their contract that choose the applicable law of Macau law or international convention, or that's more open. So once you choose that, later when has dispute, the court will apply the law that you choose. And also they have multiple dispute resolution, like mediation, arbitration. There's an international arbitration center right now. They're building up in Hengqin, and they try to recruit the arbitrator from Portuguese-speaking country and international. So later, when if have any dispute and choose the arbitrator, you can choose those you may feel more familiar, and those like Portuguese, even Portuguese arbitrator. And I know that some Macau lawyer already be select and participate as the arbitrator in the Hengqin International Arbitration Center.
May I add to that?
Yes, please.
This is unique, that last point she made about choosing which law you want to use. This hasn't been done before in China. Hong Kong's trying it in one area as well, but this is the first time where you can go and choose between an SAR law in mainland China or mainland Chinese law for commercial dispute resolution. This is one of the pioneering, or let's say the pilot projects that they're trying out in Hengqin. Special courts and arbitration centers which have already been constructed. I think it's something very interesting to watch, and the kind of thing we can only see happen in Hengqin.
More questions before we please, Rutger. Thank you.
Very interesting. Thank you very much, all of you.
Thank you.
So the second line, I think, is the most important thing that's going to happen. I'm not sure this is part of the 5-year plan that is coming to an end this December. If so, then we will see the second line very soon. The second line doesn't mean that the luxury brands from Macau can also open shop in Hengqin and sell at the same price. And before they do that, would they not want to know all the corporate taxes, which is lower, and all the benefits in Hengqin? Is a timeline to it? Because I have heard from some investors, they're a bit worried. They said, well, these are the benefits right now, but how long is this going to last? Is this something for the next 5 years, 10 years? Because before you put an investment up for millions of RMB, you want to know that it's going to last, and it's not some sort of like a tax holiday, for example. So if that's all is happening, that means that on the revenue side, assuming that also tourists who come not only from PRC, from mainland, come to Hengqin, can travel to Macau in and out, like you said, which is great, that's a gold mine. But the real gold mine is if international tourists coming to Macau can travel to Hengqin in and out. So that means you have a total one big Hengqin Macau area. Then, so my point is that the revenue will be the same, basically. Everyone can do their own business, but the cost will be very different. The cost in Macau is much higher. Operating a business in Macau is higher than in the mainland at the moment. Talk about labor. So labor-intensive industries like tourism-related, they have the benefit in Hengqin over Macau in terms of cost. Maybe utilities as well, electricity, water, and so forth will be probably cheaper in Hengqin than in Macau. So if you mention it's a synergy, there's no competition between the two. There will be competition because Hengqin has the ability to sell at lower prices, make more profit than selling the same thing in Macau. So just have some of your views on that one.
Thank you very much, Rutger. Very, very important questions on mobility and on the fact that the wealth generated in Hengqin will not be part of Macau's GDP. So how to gauge that in terms of the economic diversification, that is, I guess, something relevant, as well as the issue of mobility and mobility of on the one hand, of non-Chinese nationals who live here depending on a blue card basis status on or resident status, and also the tourists. I guess this question is in many people's minds. This has been addressed. Anyone would like to address this set of questions asked by Rutger? Maybe you can address it from a legal perspective, the
Yeah.
mobility and the visa policy and the,
Okay, I may talk a little bit
Or-
about the tax.
the tax
Yeah.
arrangement, of course.
It's like the tax is like, okay, China, usually the company income tax should be 25%. But in Hengqin, they adapt to 15%. So compared to other place in China, it's a good place to start there for the big China mainland market. So the difference already quite good already, 15. But however, it's like, I think that I would not call it tax holiday, but it's like it's policy. So the tax department can adjust according to the development. But I think it's a strategy of the Hengqin cooperator zone is a strategy of the central government. So I think they will go smoothly. It will not be like tax holiday, and also not only for the company, it also for the individual, the labor income. They will also for the talent, not more than 15%. Actually, it's like from 3% to 25%. But it promised that for the talent, it will not the tax will not be more than 15%. So it's also try to attract the talent from other places in China.
Thank you. On the issue of, for instance, in terms of the tax incentives and other matters that Evelyn would like to talk
As
about.
I know, the second tier in the near future we will have a border there. The goods enter in China mainland. We need to do the tax clearance before you enter, but it will be much more simplified, the procedure, I think. So I think it is a good opportunity to enter Hengqin first, because your products can wait there. You don't need to enter China mainland directly with the 46% tax, totally 46% tax. I take the Portuguese wine, for example. You just wait in Hengqin, and if you see, because Hengqin will be the international chain market, you will see if some sells there and some can do some manufacturing that you can exempt from some tax. So that will be a good opportunity. Also, Hengqin, if your company based on Hengqin, the direct foreign investment going back to your company will be exempt from the income tax.
Thank you. Bella, maybe you want to address some of these issues, and also one thing, and if I may also then bring Matthew to this question. I guess for many people, what they would like to see would be something that would resemble the mobility between Hong Kong and Macau with regards to border crossing as being something really smooth, where you could just swipe your Macau ID card, and then there you go. It would be something that I guess many people would be looking forward to. Would you like to comment on any of these matters? Thank you.
Actually, I still think that it needs to depend on the industry and what kind of work we are going to operate in Macau and Hengqin. Like some of the work that if you are using the mainland labors and mainland like water, that will be cheaper than in Macau. So we need to depends on different projects. Then we need to check the taxes and legals preferentials weight. So actually, I still think that each side is going to support each others. Then Macau is a window that attract the investor first, and then Hengqin is a channel to help you to build out different resources for the aggregations. Because some of the Portuguese-speaking country investors also looking for some of the Chinese corporations, and in Hengqin is a better way for them to gather different resources from different places.
Thank you, Bella. Matthew, on some of these issues and also the question of flow of people having an arrangement that would basically result in a single unified area in terms of movement of people, of visitors, of tourists, of people living here with different statuses and regardless of their nationality.
We're going to get there. It's all part of the vision, and this is so important to Beijing symbolically that they're going to make sure that the Macau-Hengqin joint tourism zone succeeds, even though there's going to be some problems along the way. This is my belief, and a lot of people who I feel are in the know in Hengqin have this belief. It's going to get there. For people in Macau, local people, I think it's going to be as seamless someday as going from Hong Kong Island to Kowloon side for Hong Kong local people. There's a few steps to overcome before we get there, but we've already overcome some of the most significant ones with the opening of the Hengqin port and a single border crossing there. In terms of shopping, retail, duty free, I don't think we're going to see a pulling back on the customs regulations. I think we're going to see a stepping up. And if you drive around Hengqin, there's an inordinate amount of retail space, shopping malls everywhere. At the base of almost every project is a shopping mall that looks too big for that project. That's because the developers know that Hengqin is moving toward a total duty-free shopping zone. So Hengqin, my prediction is that Hengqin will be as duty-free for retail shopping, including the Louis Vuitton handbags and everything, as Macau is and as Hainan Island is. If we want to know how this will be implemented, look no further than Hainan Island and look at the numbers that they did in their duty-free shopping zones during COVID, when domestic tourism was doing well, but Chinese couldn't travel easily internationally. Billions and billions of dollars that affected the market caps of companies like LVMH and luxury brands all over the world. Hengqin will be following that model, and that could be a little competition with the gaming operators in Macau and their retail operations. But let's face it, they have the baccarat tables, so people will always be going there, and they'll be winning and they'll be losing, and they'll be buying handbags when they're there. So it will be a massive duty-free zone. So we're just seeing the very first movements toward that, but consensus on the ground is that's where we're going in terms of labor freedom. A hotel operating in Hengqin has a lot more freedom to hire the number of staff that they need to run a world-class operation. That doesn't happen in Macau. Some of the most lucrative hotel and resort properties in the world are in Macau, and the Macau government is pushing them to operate a world-class operation, and the operators are saying, we simply can't because you're not allowing us to hire enough people that we need to hire because of outdated labor laws. And I've been hearing this as an occasional visitor to Macau over the last 15, 20 years. I've been hearing this all along since the breaking of the gaming monopoly in 2002/2004. So what does this mean for Hengqin? Yes, you can hire the staff. You can hire them for, in some cases, 1/3 of the price, back to your cost question, that you can for the same worker in Macau, but without the labor quotas. I think this is down the road going to benefit SMEs operating in Macau, because this perceived competition of the hospitality properties in Hengqin having a free labor market versus a constrained labor market in Macau is going to actually be the final straw that will kick the Macau government to eventually and gradually loosen the labor laws to become more reasonable and more competitive with Hengqin. That won't only affect great world-class properties like the Grand Lapa and the resort on Koh Lawan. It will also affect the SMEs, the mom-and-pop restaurants on the corner, who also are hindered to do business because of these labor quotas. they will be primary beneficiaries from the so-called competition from Hengqin because Macau will relax their rules, the Macau government, and they'll be able to hire the staff that they need to give world-class service.
Thank you. Any last question, or we move on to the concluding remarks? Perhaps it's 8:10 p.m. For the conclusion, just final remarks from each one of the guest speakers, main takeaways from this talk, and anything that you would like to highlight as a conclusion. Evelyn, you'd like to start and share some of the main points or some key message that you'd like to convey?
Thank you for coming tonight. Hengqin is a very hot topic, and I really learned a lot from the speech tonight. I get more clear of some policies and some resources in Hengqin. Because the topic is Portuguese companies to invest in Hengqin, I will say that when you clear your mind, your company, your business is qualified or going to be qualified for the Hengqin, don't hesitate. Just come to Hengqin. Grab your opportunity.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Evelyn, thank you. Jessie.
I would like to thank you. I think tonight the topic is very well and everyone share a lot of opinion. I also benefit from you. And I would like to add a little more follow the question regarding the labor law, because I think the Chinese labor law are very different to the Macau labor law. Especially I think as CCP find it to protect the labor. The labor law is, I would say, is more biased to labor. So when any dispute, actually, the evidence, the burden of proof of the evidence, a lot of time is the company need to provide. And for example, I would like to say that need to sign the contract in 1 month, in 1 month. If not, then you need to pay double for 12. From 1 month to 12 months depends on how long the worker was there and you didn't sign the written contract. So that's not in Macau. And also the Social Security the company have the obligation, the duty to pay the Social Security. And if not, the labor may not fight for it. But at the end, when have problem and when they have leave the company, they will start the litigation, and that will be a lot. I think the years, and also and the compensation also in Macau probably if for 1 year only need to pay 7 days, but in China for 1 year the compensation is 1 month. But if it's the company's fault, it will be double. Then it's 1 month times 2 times. So I think that's regarding the labor time need to pay attention.
Important points. Matthew, your final remark and main takeaways from this talk?
I won't give a speech because you've heard it already. and thank you again to the organizers and to you, Zé Carlos, for putting this on. I would echo what you said, Evelyn, about if a Macau entity is looking to move into Hengqin now, whether it be a medium company or a large company, if they're looking toward Hengqin, you can wait another 10 years until there's certainty on all of these policies, or more certainty. But you're going to largely miss the boat. It's going to be a lot more expensive to enter that market at that time. And the subsidies that you see today, which are very generous from the Hengqin government, won't be there. At least they won't be there to this extent. I'm reminded of Macau back in 2007. I was living in Hong Kong, and Macau was still trying to attract money in pre-casino boom. They were letting people from Hong Kong buy an apartment here in Macau, which was relatively inexpensive then compared to Hong Kong apartments, and you could earn your way to residency. No longer. That was suspended in 2007, as I recall, and it's never going to come back because they don't need to be desperate like that to draw in money anymore. Now they're pushing people and companies away, it could be argued. So right now, Hengqin needs the money coming in, they need the entities coming in, they need companies to register and set up actual operations there. They're subsidizing rents, they're doing all of these things. I would just say that I think the level of incentives in a few years is not going to be what it is now. So if somebody's looking at it, I'd say look at it while it's still not, and while you're still in the category of first mover. Couple bits and pieces before we wrap up of what's happening in Hengqin now. Didn't get a lot of coverage in Macau, I think, but there's a new tunnel that opened over the summer between the Shizimen area, which is the St. Regis Zhuhai area, and the central business district of Hengqin. That tunnel is now open, making for an easier commute from all those big skyscrapers in Hengqin Island to the St. Regis area of Zhuhai. That didn't get a lot of attention. The other thing to keep an eye on over the next several months is the Jinwan Bridge, and that will be the completion of a major phase of infrastructure rollout, which will benefit Macau, because the bridge, it will be connected to the Zhuhai airport, and it will be a road and rail bridge, and they're quite far along with it. Once that opens, the high-speed rail will be going out to the Zhuhai airport. It will effectively be giving Macau a new airport on Kotai's front door, connected by highway and by rail. That will be the final piece of that part of the infrastructure puzzle. Something to just keep an eye on. Also, Zhuhai Airport is set to expand its passenger flow by double, become international. So that's a piece of this pie that's going to influence Macau in the near term, in the next couple of years. I would also point out to any of you who have kids or grandkids or who are kids at heart, a new theme park just opened at Chimelong. They don't pay me to promote them, and they don't need to. I wouldn't be very good at that.
We've been reporting about that. We've been writing about that.
Well, I hope so, because it happened on Saturday. And so it might be yesterday's news. But anyway, it opened on Saturday. This is the Chimelong Spaceship theme park, and it's a marine science theme. They have orcas, killer whales, and it's been ready to open for a year and a half. It got delayed, but now it's actually open. It's getting a lot of attention in the mainland business press. It is not only the world's largest indoor theme park, it's bigger than the second largest one by twice, by a factor of 2. So it's worth, I actually haven't seen it since it's been open. I only saw it under construction, but I'm confident it will be worth checking out on a day trip. If you bring your kids over from Macau, I'd encourage you to do it on a day when it's a Macau public holiday, but not a mainland school holiday. So you won't have the crowds to face. So that's it. Thank you again, everybody.
Thank you very much, Matthew. And also thank you for also talking about the issue of connectivity and transportation and all of that, because that's something that was important also to mention. And you have the final word, Bella. Your final.
Yeah,
remarks.
it's a very bold night. We talk about this topic. And actually, I'm a local Zhuhai person. I'm very happy to see Hengqin from a small village to becoming the big topic now. So for the like back to my real focus is about MICE. I'm helping more and more investors to MICE this event to open up the business into different places. So I think it's the destiny for Macau to have the marriage with Hengqin. It's their destiny, and we could see much more policy support here. So I think I'm still very optimistic for the trend in the future. So don't miss this trend.
Thank you. So it's a community of shared destiny for Macau Hengqin, right?
Yeah.
That's right. Thank you. And with this, we conclude our session. Thank you very, very much. I'd like you to join me on a big hand to our panel speakers. Thank you very much, Evelyn Kong, Jessie Lin, Matthew Osolinsky, Bella Huang. Thank you, Carlos, Pedro, from the Portugal-China Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Of course, Rui Cunha Foundation for always warmly welcoming us and for all the support. And you who joined us here till yeah, it was almost 2 hours actually. Time does fly. And to those of you who are joining us online on Facebook, thank you very, very much. And I'm certain that we'll have, before our dinner in 10 years' time, we'll have a few more sessions on Hangxing. Thank you.